Welcome to Ask KPS Academy. I am Dr. Mahesh Boyapati, and today we are going to discuss about anal canal. So basically, I'm from Andhra Pradesh, and in Andhra Pradesh, we love spicy food. We put kali mirch in our food, we put hari mirch in our food, and we try to put everything which is spicy in our food. You will love it. The problem is the next day morning, you get up from the bed, you get into your bathroom to do your business, and then now, if you're curious, you will wonder why do we feel the heat? What is there in the spicy food which causes the heat to be felt? And the compound is capsaicin. All right, capsaicin receptors are present in the oral mucosa, so you feel the heat when the food gets in. Capsaicin receptors are present in the anal mucosa, that is called anoderm, so you feel the heat when the food gets out. Now, what is anoderm? To understand anoderm, you should know the relevant clinical anatomy of anal canal. So, as always, before I start any topic, I start with anatomy of that topic. So, talking about surgical anatomy of anal canal. Anal canal ends at the anal verge. Anal verge marks the distal end of anal canal. Beyond this anal verge, your normal skin begins. All right. Now, if you ask me where does the anal canal begin, I would say it depends on whom you ask. Anatomists will give you a different definition of anal canal, and surgeons give you a different definition of anal canal. And you know who is right. As I told you, the anal canal ends at the anal verge. Anal verge marks the distal end of the anal canal. Beyond anal verge, we have the normal skin. All right. What is skin? Stratified, squamous, keratinized epithelium. All right. Skin will contain hair follicles. Skin will contain sweat glands as well as sebaceous glands. Now, let us talk about anatomical anal canal. Anatomical anal canal extends from dentate line up till the anal verge. Anatomical anal canal extends from the dentate line up to the anal verge. Right. Now, what is dentate line? Dentate line is a transition point. All right. So, this dentate line is a transition point between columnar epithelium and squamous epithelium. What do you mean by that? So, dentate line marks the termination of columnar rectal epithelium. Columnar rectal epithelium ends at dentate line. Now, beyond dentate line, we have squamous epithelium. All right, squamous epithelium. Now, the squamous epithelium does not directly become skin. First, there is a transition point. All right, first there is a transition point, then it becomes skin. Even though this is squamous epithelium, it is squamous but not keratinized. So, it is stratified, squamous, non-keratinized epithelium up till the anal verge. Beyond anal verge, it is stratified, squamous, keratinized. All right. So, the epithelium between dentate line and anal verge is called anoderm. Anoderm. This anoderm does not have any keratinization, does not have any hair follicles, does not have any sweat glands or sebaceous glands. All right, up till the anal verge. Beyond this anal verge, we'll have hair follicles, sweat glands, sebaceous glands, and also it is keratinized. All right, so that is easy way to identify how or where the anal verge exists. That is, you will find hair follicles here. You will find hair originating beyond the anal verge. Right. So we are talking about anatomical anal canal. Anatomical anal canal extends from dentate line till the anal verge. To accurately appreciate surgical anal canal, it is very important that you guys perform a digital rectal examination. So whenever you go to a surgical ward, ask your postgraduates to help you do a digital rectal examination and they'll help you out. All right. When you do a digital rectal examination, try to appreciate the posterior and lateral wall of the anorectal region. All right. So on the posterior and lateral wall, you will find a ridge. All right. This ridge is formed by puborectalis muscle. Now, puborectalis muscle, as the name suggests, it originates from the pubic bone, slings around the rectum, and back into the pubic bone. All right. This puborectalis muscle forms the anorectal ring. So this line represents the superior margin of anorectal ring. So surgical anal canal extends from the superior margin of anorectal ring all the way up till the anal verge. So surgical anal canal extends from the superior margin of anorectal ring till the anal verge. Now remember, surgical anal canal contains some part of columnar epithelium. All right, some part of columnar epithelium will be present in the surgical anal canal. Now, anatomical anal canal was from dentate line till the anal verge. All right. Now, if you talk about the length of anatomical anal canal is just 2 centimeters, whereas the length of surgical anal canal is 4 centimeters. All right. So, length of anatomical anal canal is 2 centimeters and surgical anal canal is 4 centimeters long. Now, just above the dentate line, there are longitudinal mucosal folds called columns of Morgagni. Columns of Morgagni corresponds to submucosal blood vessels. Submucosal blood vessels are present at the level of columns of Morgagni. These submucosal blood vessels are nothing but hemorrhoids. Now, the function of hemorrhoids is to act like a cushion. Function of hemorrhoids is to act like a cushion to protect the underlying structures. All right. There's another function of hemorrhoids. Another function of hemorrhoids is to prevent gas leak. They act like a air seal. Hemorrhoids act like an air seal which prevents leakage of gas from the rectum. And also they protect underlying structures by acting like a cushion. To appreciate submucosal blood vessels, if you look at the patient's anal canal in lithotomy position and superimpose a clock where 12 o'clock becomes anterior and 6 o'clock becomes posterior, prominent submucosal blood vessels will be located at 3 o'clock, 7 o'clock and 11 o'clock position. These prominent submucosal blood vessels are called primary hemorrhoids. So primary hemorrhoids are present at 3 o'clock, 7 o'clock and 11 o'clock position. In between primary hemorrhoids, we will find numerous less prominent submucosal blood vessels called secondary hemorrhoids. So basically primary hemorrhoids which are located at 3, 7 and 11 o'clock position, and in between these primary hemorrhoids, we will find less prominent submucosal blood vessels called secondary hemorrhoids. Now coming back to this diagram, distal to this longitudinal mucosal folds called columns of Morgagni, there are number of openings. These openings are openings of anal ducts. Anal ducts open at the distal end of columns of Morgagni. All right. The other name of these openings are crypts of Morgagni. Now this anal duct will be draining anal glands. Anal ducts will be draining anal glands. All right. They will be about 10 to 12 in number. Anal glands are about 10 to 12 in number. They will be opening just distal to columns of Morgagni at the level of dentate line. All right. Now, what do these anal glands do? Anal glands, they secrete lubricating fluid. Anal glands secrete lubricating fluid which eases in passage of stool, which helps in passage of stool. It lubricates stool. So, the stool passes very smoothly. Is that fine? So, the location of these anal glands are quite important. Now, anal glands are located in intersphincteric space. Now, what do you mean by intersphincteric space? Obviously, it should be between the sphincters. Now, what are the sphincters are we talking about? anal glands which are located in the intersphincteric space are present between internal anal sphincter and external anal sphincter. All right, we'll talk about the sphincters in a while. Just pay attention. Internal anal sphincter and external anal sphincter are separated by intersphincteric space. These anal glands will be located in the intersphincteric space. All right, anal glands will be located in the intersphincteric space. Now, the clinical importance of location of anal gland is once the anal gland duct gets obstructed either by a stool or any debris in the stool, it leads to infection of the anal gland. Anal gland gets infected. Now, there is a theory called cryptoglandular hypothesis. All right, to understand cryptoglandular hypothesis, you should understand what happens here. Once this infection is formed, once infection of anal gland is formed, obviously pus will be formed. Now, this pus travels along the path of least resistance. All right, it can go down, it can go up, or it can cross the external sphincter and go into the ischiorectal fossa. All right, so we will discuss in detail about this cryptoglandular hypothesis when we are talking about perianal abscess and also fistula in ano. But remember, this plays an important role. That is, the anal glands location and anal glands play an important role in formation of perianal abscess as well as fistulas in ano. All right. So what you have to remember while you are studying anatomy is the location of this anal glands. Anal glands are located in intersphincteric space. What sphincters are we talking about? We are talking about internal sphincter and also we are talking about external sphincter. Okay, internal anal sphincter and external anal sphincter. Now talking about the internal anal sphincter. Internal anal sphincter is nothing but continuation of the circular muscles of the rectum. The circular muscle of the rectum continues distally to form internal anal sphincter. All right. Now these are involuntary muscles. Internal anal sphincter is an involuntary muscle and it is always at the state of contraction. That is tonic state of contraction. It is always contracted. So it does not allow stool and flatus to pass at a normal resting phase. So because it is involuntary muscle, it is supplied by sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Right? That is internal anal sphincter. Now talking about the external anal sphincter. External anal sphincter, in contrast to internal anal sphincter, is a voluntary muscle. Now voluntary muscle which is supplied by pudendal nerve. Pudendal nerve is supplying external anal sphincter. Now what is a nerve root of pudendal nerve? It ranges from S2 to S3. Now, damage to bilateral pudendal nerve. Remember, damage to bilateral pudendal nerve will lead to fecal incontinency. All right, fecal incontinency will happen if bilateral pudendal nerves get damaged. Unilateral pudendal nerve gets damaged, incontinency is rare, but for incontinency to develop, bilateral pudendal nerve should be damaged. All right, that leads to fecal incontinency. Now we have talked about intersphincteric space. Now intersphincteric space is located between external sphincter and internal sphincter. As I told you, it is an important region because it contains anal glands and it is the area where any suppuration, that is pus formation in the anal region starts. All right. So, and also remember, you can open the space surgically. You can access this space surgically. All right. So, it is quite important. Intersphincteric plane. Now, there's another muscle here. We have discussed about internal anal sphincter. We have talked about external anal sphincter. All right. I told you internal anal sphincter is a continuation of circular muscle of the rectum. Now, what happens to longitudinal muscle? The longitudinal muscle of the rectum, it extends distally and it terminates as multiple terminal septa. Terminates as a multiple terminal septa and which provides support to the anal region. That's it. Nothing much significant about longitudinal muscles, but remember the location. All right. So if we just want to look at the anatomy again, anatomy of internal anal sphincter, we know. External anal sphincter, we know. We know internal anal sphincter is a continuation of circular muscle of rectum, whereas longitudinal muscle continues down as multiple terminal septa. All right. And we talked about intersphincteric space. Now coming to the blood supply of the anal canal. The blood supply of the anal canal varies depending on the location. Anal canal above the dentate line is supplied by superior rectal artery, whereas anal canal below the dentate line is supplied by inferior rectal arteries.